Good evening, Planeswalkers. My name is Shamar, and welcome to the Commander Corps. Today's library is full of frog-themed cards that bounce around and crush our opponents when they land. I designed this library at my partner's request, so we are going to be using Grolnok the Omnivore as our frog commander. Now let's see how we get froggy with it. For this library, I chose Grolnok the Omnivore as the commander. He is a Simic commander, so green and blue, that costs 2 generic mana, a green and a blue mana, for a total of 4. He reads, if a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards, and whenever a permanent card is sent from your library to your graveyard, exile it with a croak counter on it. You may cast lands or permanents that you own in exile with croak counters on them. This gets out of hand real fast, but first we have to learn the mechanics of this library. Our library is focused on what frogs do best, which is leaping. Back to our hands with what we Planeswalkers call bounce effects. This mechanic is shown on our spells as returning a permanent back to its owner's hands. This allows us to replay our frogs or protect them from being targeted. As a response to a removal spell, you may be able to return the targeted frog back to your hand and then play them on a later turn. There are also some milling effects within this library. Milling means taking cards from the top of their owner's library and putting them into the graveyard. With Grolnok's first ability, milling our library to make another hand is going to be insane and easy to ensure. Now let's meet our croaking army of creatures. This library is chock full of frogs to help fuel Grolnok's mill. Within the 99, we are hoping to cast Valley Mightcaller, Mistbreath Elder, Omnivore, and Froghemoth. Valley Mightcaller is a great way to start the game. For 1 green mana, this frog warrior gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you cast a frog, which is every time you cast a creature, because this library is all frogs. Not only is he getting a +1/+1 counter, he also has trample, so he can get pretty big very fast as you bounce your frogs from your battlefield to your hand and then back to the battlefield again. And to assist in bouncing our frogs, we have Mistbreath Elder. For 1 green mana as well. He reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Mistbreath Elder. If there are no creatures on your battlefield, he returns to your hand. Our Mistbreath Elder can help you transition into the late game by bouncing frogs that have entered the battlefield effects, all while growing bigger himself. Now while our frogs are getting bigger, we want to try to ward off our opponent's attention. A great way to do that is with Omnivore. Omnivore costs a generic mana, 2 green, and a blue mana for a 3/3 frog. Now this is a large mana cost, however what makes this cost worth it is the fact that you can tap Omnivore to make target creature a 3/3 frog until end of turn. Our fellow Planeswalkers are not going to enjoy when we turn their big creature into a 3/3 frog, and most definitely will not want to swing it into our army. While our opponents hold off targeting us, we can definitely try to hit them with our big frogs. With that in mind, Froghemoth is a great way to crash through our opponent's defenses while exponentially growing our board. Froghemoth is a 5 mana creature costing us 3 generic and 2 green mana. This 4/4 enters with trample and haste. But whenever Froghemoth deals combat damage to a player, exile up to that many target cards from their graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on Froghemoth for each creature card exiled, or you gain 1 life for each non-creature card exiled this way. The Froghemoth is an absolute unit in this library. This frog can either get bigger if you have an opponent whose graveyard is full of creatures, or can help you stay healthy if you have an opponent with a lot of non-creature spells in their graveyard. Once this hits the board, your opponents are definitely going to try and remove him. Besides bouncing your creatures back to your hand, let's take a look at some instants and sorceries that can help protect our board. Within the 99, we have a lot of Froggy instants and sorceries that allow us to not only protect our frogs, but also ensure that we draw to find our game enders. For our instants, we are going to look forward to Polymorphous Jest, Rowdy Research, and Illusionist Gambit. While in our sorceries, we are going to rely on Croaking Counterpart, Inevitable Betrayal, and Fractured Sanity. Starting with Polymorphous Jest, for 1 generic mana and 2 blue mana, this spell fits beautifully into our frog theme. This spell allows us to turn an opponent's board into a wave of 1/1 frogs with no abilities. This card is absolutely insane, and your opponents will not be prepared for this to happen. We, of course, are going to love to use this after attackers are declared to punish the opponent that chose to swing out. However, another time when this spell comes in handy is when you have an opponent that depends on their creature's abilities to progress ahead of everyone. Effectively, you can prevent them from taking that big turn they were hoping for, because all of their creatures will lose all abilities. The frog theme is very interactive with your opponent's boards, so keep in mind we are going to want to draw as many cards as possible to find our froggy finishers, and a great card to help us do this is Rowdy Research. This is normally 6 generic mana and 1 blue mana for an instant that allows you to draw 3 cards. However, this spell also reads the spell costs 1 less for each creature that's attacked this turn. Whether an opponent or you swung out, this spell is rarely, if ever, going to be cast at full cost. With a possible swing out on the horizon, Illusionist Gambit helps ensure your frogs stick around. Illusionist Gambit costs 2 generic mana and 2 blue for an instant that can only be cast during the declare blocker step on an opponent's turn. Yet when this spell is cast, remove all attacking creatures from combat and untap them. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase in which all those original attackers attack again, but they can't attack you or Planeswalkers you control. The thing about frogs is that they need some help to deal with certain Planeswalkers. However, this card just helps ensure that your opponents are dealing with that problem for you. Hopping on to our sorceries, looking at Croaking Counterpart, for 1 generic, 1 green, and 1 blue mana, you can create a token copy of any non-frog creature on the battlefield. The only drawback is that it's a 1/1 frog itself, but it has all the abilities of the copied creature. As if that wasn't bad enough, you can flashback this spell for 3 generic, a green, and a blue mana. Flashback allows you to cast it again from your graveyard, exiling it after it resolves. If you have an opponent with a creature that has too many keywords or a relevant effect that you can take advantage of, this spell does the trick. Besides making more frogs, there are more ways to take advantage of your opponent's cards. Inevitable Betrayal is that card for us. For 1 generic mana and 2 blue, we suspend 3 this card. So we put 3 counters on it, known as time counters. At the beginning of our upkeep, we remove 1. When the last is removed, we cast the spell for free. And this spell allows us to search target opponent's library for a creature card and put it onto our battlefield. Then they shuffle. In 3 turns, if an opponent's library is doing the thing, then we can take one of their big creatures in response to hopefully slow them down or turn the tide. Finally, another way to really leap over our fellow Planeswalkers is with Fractured Sanity. For 3 blue, we can have each opponent mill 14 cards. This is backbreaking in itself. However, there is a consolation prize in case you don't have 3 blue mana when you draw this spell. You can also cycle this card, discarding it and drawing a new one, and you also have your opponents mill 4 cards. There's something that's just a little bit satisfying about drawing cards while reducing your opponent's library. This library, all in all, wants to muddy up your opponent's plans. Now that we know some of the key components to this deck, how do we lead an army of frogs? Well, number 1, we are going to want Grolnok out as soon as possible. In the meantime, we will be playing smaller frogs, so when Grolnok hits the field, we will immediately start building this second hand that we have. Number 2, bouncing frogs back to our hand is important. We have a lot of frogs that have entered the battlefield effects, so to capitalize on that, we want to make sure that we are recasting them. Number 3. This is a very creature-heavy Simic deck with a few alternative win cons. The main way this deck wins, however, is just by convincing your opponents that these frogs are really small and they should aim their resources at others. Then you can jump in with your army when they least expect it to finish off who's left. This library is a hopping good time. However, I will note that this deck does take a lot of piloting. The best part about this is, it's not always about making the most optimal play, it's more of a let's see what happens kind of library. Now, my personal pet card in this deck has to be the Rampant Frogantua. This is a 2 generic and 1 green mana game ender. A 3/3 with trample that gets +10/+10 for each opponent who has lost the game. Now I have seen him become a 23/23 after he knocked out a couple of Planeswalkers, and that last Planeswalker is praying to top deck some removal at that point. But alas, now that you have an idea of how to play this deck, it's time to start bouncing around the battlefield and crushing your fellow Planeswalkers. As always, happy spell slinging and try to stay warm out here. Thank you for making it to the end of my video. Now, I'm not sponsored by Manapool, however, I love ordering my cards from Manapool. They have almost all the cards I search for at a cheaper price than most major selling marketplaces, and also a dedicated support team that is fast and responsive. If you want to help support my channel and are planning on ordering cards anyways, use my referral link here if you already have an account, or here if you are creating an account. When you place an order over $10, you get 5,000 extra mana, or $5 off an order. Not only that, but I also get 5,000 extra mana, so I can keep putting out interesting libraries for you. If you aren't in the market for cards, but are looking to support my channel, you can do so for free by making sure to hit subscribe and give this video a like. Thank you for your time. Now here comes the bloopers. Good evening, Planeswalker. Well, milling means taking cards from the top of your opponent's Nope. With Grolnok's first ability, milling our deck is... With Grolnok's first ability, milling our deck... Fellow Planeswalkers are not... For 1 green mana, this Frog Warrior gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you cast a frog, which is... Nope, okay, where was I? Which is every time you cast a creature, because this deck is all frogs. But whenever Froghemoth deals combat damage to a player, exile up to that many target cards from their graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on Froghemoth for each card. Put a +1/+1 counter on Froghemoth for each creature card exiled. Illusionist Gambit costs... Flashback allows you to... In the meantime, we will be playing smaller frogs, so when Grolnok hits the field, we can start hopping... We'll be playing smaller frogs, so when Grolnok hits the field, we will immediately start hopping... So, when... However,